So we have another question from Michael, and this is a question we get a lot. How much protein are you getting a day, and what is your source?
The famous protein question. It's a good one, and again, as you say, it's probably one of the most frequently asked questions. My eyes were really opened when I got into this whole juicing thing, because if someone had said to me, do you know that per 100 calories there is more protein in broccoli than steak, I wouldn't have believed you. But if you look at Dr. Furman's website, remember Dr. Furman was the nutritionist in Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. Per 100 calories of broccoli, there is 11 grams of protein.
Wow.
For 100 calories of steak, there's 8 grams of protein. Now
Amazing.
I do want to, yeah, it is. Now I want to make it clear that 1 ounce of steak isn't a huge amount.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that difference if you're a big steak versus broccoli. But nonetheless, that 100 calories of broccoli there's 11 grams of protein there. There's a lot more protein in greens than we give them credit for. But I don't just use veggies for that. I use, banana is very good for protein, and then I use this stuff. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera.
Oh, love Vega.
Vega Performance Protein, which is non-dairy based, and that's something I would urge you. If you're going to incorporate a protein powder into your juices or smoothies, try and go plant-based. This has, for one serving, which is one scoop, 25 grams of protein, which is 50% of the daily value. And the protein comes from pea protein. I mean, I never knew peas had protein. Sava seed, there's sacha inchi protein, sprouted whole grain brown rice protein, alfalfa protein. So this is, again, is very natural. There's no fillers in this. It's a little pricey, and I'm not here to do a sales spot. If you look in my cupboard here, I have Vega products to help me, particularly after my long run. And my long run, so yesterday I ran 10 miles. I came home, I have a cup of soy milk, because soy has some good protein in. I have a scoop of this, I add a frozen banana, I add blueberries for the antioxidants.
That sounds good.
It is, and I also add a good spoonful of almond butter, because there's a lot of protein in almond butter. There's also a lot of calories in almond butter, but if you're talking about really upping your protein. So I don't have this every day. I try and rely on veggies and fruit, but for post-recovery after a long workout, especially a 10-mile plus run, this stuff is great. If it's out of budget, I can really recommend hemp seeds. There's hemp protein, which is also very, very good. So just try and strive, the way that you see, W-H-E-Y, that you see a lot of bodybuilders have, that's got a lot of soy isolates, a lot of fillers and everything else. The Vega is my friend, and Vega is actually designed by a former Ironman champion who's a vegan, and he was a vegan when he was competing, so I'm pretty confident that this stuff is doing its job, and it's 25 grams of protein for every serving.
Great tip. So we have another question from Mary, and Mary asks, what has been the most surprising benefit you've experienced by reaching your goal weight?
Surprising benefit, I would say there's probably the fact that I can try more sports and I'm more confident about it. So recently I started boxing training. Now, I don't want to get into a ring and start clumping people, but boxing training is very vigorous and it's an all-body training rather than just the running, and I wanted something to complement with it. So I felt the energy that I could go and train for that. I played soccer recently. I've not played soccer. I'm sorry for my British friends at home, football. That I haven't played that in a long time, so I had this energy to try new things, and of course there's other things like not having to go to the big and tall store anymore, the Fat Man store. I can go to Ralph Lauren, especially living here now in New York City, and buy really nice clothes that I don't have to scrap around and be embarrassed. Have you got these in a 42-inch trouser? So they're the benefits. There's also my career took off. There is no coincidence that when I juiced and when I started running and I was losing the weight, I landed my dream job here in the United States, and I was living in Europe at the time, so that there are a lot of benefits.
Amazing. We have a question from Gretchen, and Gretchen would like to know what your biggest insight has been.
My biggest insight really has been food in general. my eyes were really open. Before I juiced, before I was on this whole journey, I had no idea what clean diet was. I had no idea that processed food was bad for me. I thought, if I saw a microwave meal that had the word healthy on it or low fat, that it was good for me. I had no idea. I mean, everyone knows veggies are good for you, but I had no idea how good they were for me. So it kind of segue nicely into what I eat now, and I try and follow a nutritarian approach of as many greens as I can get in a day, and raw veggies, and steaming veggies so they don't, I used to boil the death out of vegetables, and now I steam them, especially broccoli, Brussels sprouts, that you get such a nice crunch when you steam them. So it opened my eyes to that. I also started to learn how to read food labels properly, and I think that was a huge change for me, because in the past, if I looked at a food label, I would look straight at the calorie content and say, oh, it's only 200 calories, this is great, I can have loads of this. So I didn't know that actually that one item was 5 servings of 200 calories. I thought the whole thing was 200 calories. And also I never looked at the sugar content, I never looked at the saturated fat, and then ingredients. Now I try my hardest to only eat food that has ingredients I can pronounce and actually know what it is.
That's a great tip.
It's tough, it's not easy, but you can shop around, and this is where places like Whole Foods or natural stores are really good. You can get a lot of this stuff without a lot of the crap in. So the insight or the spin-off effect of juicing is I started to look at food very differently.
We have another question from Matt, and Matt wants to know, what role did exercise play in reaching your goal weight? And if you were exercising, what does a typical week look like for you?
It goes hand in hand for me. When I set up RunningOnJuice.com, it was to keep myself accountable. So I was doing the juicing and I was starting to run at the same time. And when I started running in Sweden, it was anywhere from -4 Fahrenheit to -35 Fahrenheit. It was very cold.
Wow.
But I was very determined that I needed some form of exercise to help me juice. And I knew that the exercise would help burn calories and it would make the juicing more successful. So exercise was very important to me. Back then I started the Couch Potato to 5K program, because look, I was not a good runner. I was not a sports person. I was king of the couch potatoes. So I started off with Couch Potato to 5K, which is a run walk program over 8 weeks. And listen, the body is amazing. It's amazing that in 8 weeks I went from not being able to run 1 minute. Listen, the only thing I ever ran for was the bar when it was last orders. Seriously. So to be able to go an 8-week plan, and at the end of the 8-week plan to run 3 miles or 30 minutes non-stop was huge. So that was my regime when I started out. Then of course I got into this whole, okay, I want to push myself further, and I'm training right now for my 4th half marathon. So right now I'm running between 25 to 30 miles a week, and I find that really helps with maintenance, and also, the endorphins. And running for me is my meditation now. I'll listen to some new music, or I'll make a playlist. Yesterday I was out for 10 miles and I got to really think about things in my life, and I kind of zone out. And for me, it's my vehicle. Now for others watching this, I'm very conscious that the word running scares a lot of people. So it could be walking, it could be cycling, it could be swimming. There are lots of different things we can do. It's all about moving, but gradually moving until you increase your fitness level, not going straight into a marathon training program.
Again, that theme of leaning into something and not jumping in too quick.
Yes, very, very powerful. And it's your best insurance policy. That's how you'll go out and achieve these goals, just by leaning in, finding out what works for you, and really listening to your body. If you go out and you run and you're in, you know the difference between fatigue and real pain. And when you get that real pain, your body is sending you a message that, hey, you're not ready for this. So maybe go back to walking every day until your body can
gotta listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great stuff, Shane. We have more incredible questions coming up in part 4, so stay tuned.